Now, let's say your car breaks down, or let's say you get into a fender bender. Your values will dictate whether you spend $500 on getting the bumper fix or getting that dent out of your car versus keeping the money in your pocket so that you can invest in your business.
Hey guys, it's Ariel from the Work and Play podcast. If you're getting any value from this channel, and I mean anything from the tutorials to the podcast to the random videos that you see on this channel, then I just ask that you do one thing. Please subscribe. Subscribe and share this to anyone that you think this resonates with, and drop a comment below so I know what other things that you want to see next. Now let's get back to the episode.
Welcome back to a solo edition of the Work and Play podcast. So today's episode is inspired by one of my connections on Instagram who reached out to me and asked me the following question. So he said, I left my job back in February to pursue my dream, but the transition to entrepreneurship has honestly been rough. I'm considering going back to corporate to fund my dream and invest in my dream. What are your thoughts on leaving your corporate job too soon? I think this is a really great question because when we're in corporate and we're in a job that we're not happy with, we oftentimes take that emotional response and we just quit off the top, without thinking about a monetary strategy that's going to get us through entrepreneurship or even simply the first 90 days of entrepreneurship. And so because this is a really important question, I want to address it, but I don't want to go too far into leaving your corporate job too soon because he's already gone and he's already left his job. So there's so many people who, unbeknownst to a lot of people, have gone back to corporate America after leaving to be an entrepreneur. And that happens for a lot of different reasons. So in a conversation that I had with this young man, we went through 8 different questions that really helped him get really clear on what he wants to do and how he wanted to move forward. Now, before I get into these 8 questions, I think it's important that we still kind of hit on leaving the job too soon. When I left my job, one of the things that I had to come to terms with before actually leaving was getting over that emotional response. You never want to run away from an opportunity. You want to run towards opportunities. So running away from a bad situation can really always get you sick. Running away from a bad situation can put you in an even worse situation if you're leaving for the wrong reasons. So before leaving your job, I consider you check your emotions. Are you really unhappy with the job, or is it just the environment that you're currently in? And I think I've said this before, but I think it's really important that you check your emotions before you make that emotional response. The next thing is ensuring that you have the finances to leave is a done deal. Making sure you have the savings to contribute to at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses will make sure you have enough headway to think through the situation, consider the pitfalls, and even just kind of find yourself for the first month or 2 before you go out and really hit the ground running as an entrepreneur. The resources that you have before leaving corporate America is also important. So if you have not tapped out on all the resources that you could possibly use, that could be training, that could be actually shadowing someone who does a job that you want to do as an entrepreneur, and it could simply just be just the years of experience that it takes to learn business acumen. Because a lot of times when we leave our job off of passion, depending on the degree that you got in college, and I would say more than not, if you're in corporate America, you have a college degree, then you essentially will need that business acumen, whether you go into business to be a creative or not. So instead of just going off passion and emotion without thinking about your financial decisions, it's important to sit down and think through a clear exit strategy so that you know exactly how you're going to hit the ground running when you go into entrepreneurship. So for me, there's no leaving your job too soon. If you have those 3 things in place, and even if you don't have all of the answers on how you're going to figure out your entrepreneurial journey, if you really want to test out your passion, try your interests, and try a job or a career on your own, then I say go for it. Now, leaving corporate America and going into entrepreneurship, you have to build that tenacity and your risk aversion no matter what. Being in entrepreneurship takes away those barriers and those bumpers to keep you safe, and it really allows you to see what you're made of. But not only that, the decisions that you make are your decisions alone. So there's no checks and balances of a leader telling you what decision to make. You essentially make the right decision, or I'll say you make a decision and you figure out if it's the right one once you make it. So that's all I wanted to really get into when it comes to leaving your job too soon. Making sure you have some of those logistical pieces in place, those logical pieces in place before you make an emotional decision is my number one feedback. Once you have the things in place that you need, the only decision after that is taking a chance on you. Now that risk is up to you. It might not succeed the first time you try, but you have to give it a shot in order to really see if that's what you want to do, what you're really made of. So for the rest of this episode, I really want to get into the 8 questions that we talked about, because I think if you are curious about going back to corporate America because you've already left, I think it's important that we think through a couple things so that you really, really know if this is the thing that you want to do. So the first thing that I would do with any of my clients is talk through mindset. So I'm not going to approach this situation any differently. The first thing that we talked about was for him to have a conversation with his past self, his present self, and then we got really comfortable with what the future self was. Let me explain. So your past self is the person who quit their job in the first place. Why did you quit your job? What really was the decision? Now, if you left your job without getting those 3 things together, that probably means that you never really thought through why you wanted to leave and what your overall vision was going to be. So going to have a conversation with that past self will really help you get really clear on why you left in the first place, because that's going to lead your continuous journey in entrepreneurship. Now, thinking about your present situation means considering your bills, considering what expenses that you have, what investments have you currently made into your career, what activity are you currently doing. Now, when I mean what activity are you doing, sometimes when we leave corporate America, what I'll say is 2 things could happen. You can leave corporate America and think that entrepreneurship means that you can work anytime you want. So you wake up at 10 o'clock, you do a little bit of work from 11 to 12, and then you kind of, hang out with friends and then maybe do a little bit more work, create a social media page, something like that. Well, just because you leave corporate America and you own your time, that does not mean that you have all of your 24 hours to blow away. So if you're an entrepreneur and you haven't been efficient with your time after leaving corporate America, that could have been your situation. Now, the other thing that happens when we go into entrepreneurship is we work these long hours. So we work from sun up to sundown, and we really feel like we're hitting the pavement running and going full steam ahead. But are you dealing with revenue generating activity, or are you simply just doing activity? There's a complete difference. So just because you spent all day creating a website, just because you spent all day creating content for your social media, that does not count as doing revenue generating activity. Unless you have a social media strategy that attracts clients to you. And in other words, if you're a new entrepreneur, then you don't necessarily have that client base. So chances are you could be spinning your wheels doing activity that's not necessarily revenue generating. So before you start to consider if you should go back, I say check in with your present self and decide, have you been putting in the necessary effort to make it in entrepreneurship before you decide to quit? The next thing is, in terms of your present, thinking about your current situation. Are you still living above your means? Are you still living that corporate life? Do you still have some of the lifestyle that you had when you were in corporate? And are there adjustments that can be made? Now, I'm not saying make adjustments in the long term, because I do understand you left corporate in order for you to live that dream life. But in order to get there, there may be a few sacrifices that you take in the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey in order to succeed in the long run. So if you had a cleaning service come in monthly, then are you still doing that cleaning service? How much are you paying on cable? That might be really important. Now, I know internet has to stay because everything is digital these days, but are you still going out to eat every now and then? Do you have a large entertainment budget, if you have a budget at all? That's your present situation. And then the last thing when it comes to your present decisions are your values. So considering what your values are, I can't count how many times I've asked someone, what are your core values? And they don't have an answer. And that's because we typically just kind of live our life day to day, but we don't necessarily think about what keeps us centered and what decisions do we make that are based on our values. And those high level values could be integrity. It could be your dream of serving others. It could be money. It could be a lot of money. It could also just be, serving. It could be honesty. It could be love. It could be loyalty. Those are values, and you have to decide how those things lead your life. Now, let's say your car breaks down, or let's say you get into a fender bender. Your values will dictate whether you spend $500 on getting the bumper fix or getting that dent out of your car versus keeping the money in your pocket so that you can invest in your business. Those are decisions that we have to make on a daily basis, and getting really clear on where we are today will really help us make those decisions in entrepreneurship going forward. Now, getting in touch with your future self means that you are thinking about what the dream is. Is it worth, deciding to backstep on your vision in order to go back to corporate and be safe? Now, I'm never going to say that the investment route is not the right route, but what I am talking about is if you're already running a race, is your dream more important than turning back, or is getting the funding an essential piece of the puzzle that you haven't necessarily figured out yet? That's for you to decide. So in asking this first question about getting really clear and having a conversation with your past, your present, and your future self, I think this will help you reflect on what your mindset was, what your mindset is, and what your mindset needs to be in order to move forward. The next question I asked him was, what activity have you put into your business since you quit your job? Now, this hinges on that present self question, so I'm not going to stay here too long, but it's all about what revenue generating activity have you been doing to sustain yourself. If you have not been putting in the work that's desired, you might need to get with a coach or an accountability buddy to restructure some of your activity and then put a system in place where you get the necessary work done that attracts revenue towards you instead of just plain old activity. So thinking about the work that you have been doing will help you understand, have I really been putting my everything into this business? Have I really tried my best to work towards my goal? If not, then I say you owe yourself to the shot to take a chance on you and figure out if that's actually what you want to do. Now, this next question is really practical because I had to get really clear on what his financial situation actually was. Now, if you think about this transition from corporate to entrepreneurship, and like I said, it's passion driven, it's dream driven, it's vision driven. You may not have the money. And again, as you build your risk adversity, then you will be able to understand what is enough money, what is my number. Before I left corporate, I had a conversation with my mentor and she asked me plain out, what is your number? And she told me, if you don't know your number, you need to know your number. So knowing your numbers is consistent whether you're still in corporate America, whether you're in your transition out of corporate into entrepreneurship, or if you're already an entrepreneur. Knowing your numbers is essential. So, of course, I asked, how much money do you have in the bank? If you don't have any money in the bank, like if you are actually at zero, then my next question is actually important, but we're going to stay here for a moment, because if you don't necessarily have enough money, then the next place that you have to find finances is actually going to be much more important. I am not a proponent of being a starving artist. So if you don't have enough money in your bank account to address the responsibilities that you currently have, then it's important that you look at your situation. Are you taking care of people? Do you have dependents? Or can you downsize your lifestyle to save some of the money that you currently have? Do you have money coming in any form or fashion? Some people decide to do Lyft. Some people decide to do Uber. Some people just go into the gig industry, because that can definitely help you kind of keep your bills paid, keep your expenses covered, and kind of keep you afloat. Now, after you get really clear on how much money you have, hopefully you have a little bit of money saved up. Then the question is, how long will that last you? Realistically, how long would that money last you, depending on whether you pay your creditors or not, whether you pay your water bill or not, whether you pay your rent, whether you pay the debts that you've owed, all of that stuff, or invest even in a coach, or invest in a program or something like that, or even going back to school. Thinking about your financial decision is really important. After you've done all the reflecting and you know where your heart is, your money actually has a huge role to play in that. So I really encourage you, if you're in this situation, to think about how your finances play a role in this transition. Now, it's important to get real with yourself, because if you have the finances, if you know exactly why it is that you're doing this, but you still feel like you're squeezed, right? You still feel that emotional pressure. Then my question is, how long can you really hold out? How long can you give it all you have before you go back? I would hate for you to turn around just because times got a little bit hard and you really haven't gone full throttle. If you haven't gone full throttle, then I highly suggest that you do this from this day forward. You make a commitment to yourself that you will give it another 2 months, another 3 months before you see revenue coming in, or to see revenue coming in before you decide to go back into corporate America. Now, again, if your finances have already checked you out and you say, you know what, I don't even have a day because I'm on -0. And I know -0 is not a number, but if you're on -2, if your account is literally overdrawn, then you want to actually start to reevaluate your situation. However, if that dream outweighs your finances, then maybe you have a couple more months to hold out to really, really, really push it to the metal. Now, in a case where my clients are stressed for money, stressed because of not knowing where your business is going to take off, that kind of thing, then this question really does count on your willingness and your drive to succeed. This is a present day conversation. So if you think about it, in 20 years, you're going to actually have to have this conversation with yourself over and over and over. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be ups and downs. And there are going to be times when the easy choice could be going back to corporate. The easy choice could be doing some other type of gig that you're not necessarily passionate about. But if you have a moment to hold out before you take drastic measures, and drastic measures doesn't necessarily just have to be corporate, it could be other decisions. And I know you know what I mean by other decisions. So before you actually make those other decisions, then I need you to take a really huge look at how long you can last going full throttle. 110% before you make any drastic moves. So I covered a lot of the 8 questions in question number 1. So we're going to skip down to question number 7. Question number 7 is, what information do you currently have at your fingertips? And what information can you execute on so you can deliver a solution or a result for someone else? A lot of times when we go into entrepreneurship, we don't necessarily think about the revenue first. Again, we're thinking about passion on the way out. And then in entrepreneurship, we have this desire to just help people. But helping people never has a definitive number on it. So when you think about the definitive number that you are working towards, what value can you provide using the information that you have in your mind to truly, truly, truly bring that monetary goal to fruition? This could be anything that you currently know, anything that you currently have done, or information that you've used in your corporate career in the past. Now, this is a whole mindset shift, because when we leave corporate America, we have this mindset that we're just one of 20,000. We're just one of 50,000. We're just one of, you get me? So if you're thinking that you don't really matter, you don't really count, then you don't look at your skill sets as cash cow revenue driving skills. And I need you to know that the skills that you currently have are valuable. I don't care if you've worked in corporate America for 1 year or 7 years or 15 years. Whatever you do right now, whatever you know right now, can attribute to getting someone a solution immediately. Now, I'm not a desperate salesman type person. I'm not a desperate salesman type person. I don't believe that you should sell products in a desperate position. So that's why reflecting is really important. If you truly, truly know you have value and you have information in your mind, and you know that you can put together something that brings a solution to someone in need, then it's important that you take a step back and really think about how you can add value in the marketplace. I'll give you a specific example. So I talk a lot about my past career, which was data analytics. And when I quit my job, I actually never wanted to see a spreadsheet again. But what I realized was, as I was defining what my entrepreneurial identity was going to be, I still had these skill sets and I still had to eat. So did people actually need to create databases, and did people actually need to know how to analyze their numbers? Of course. Did I know how to do that? Of course. Was I passionate about it? No. But just because you're not passionate about something, does that mean that you don't necessarily need to use those skills to get money? Not at all. So what I mean is, I'm not saying go desperately go sell a half-baked product that you've never used, or you've never used that skill set before. But what I am saying is using the information that's already in your mind to create something valuable in the marketplace that'll get you through, so you can create something that you're more passionate about, is what I'm talking about here. So if you have a skill that you've been using for years, and you're at a place where you don't know if you can actually go back into corporate because you've tried, or so you think, at whatever your new entrepreneurial endeavor is, and you haven't tried to use those corporate skills in this current environment, then I think you should use those first, and then create a foundation that will allow you to have some breathing space to think about a new creative idea. Now, all of these questions definitely got us to a place where we were clear about what product he could actually provide in the marketplace. He was clear about why he actually quit his job in the first place, what skills he had available at his fingertips, and what resources he could use to really drive some value in the marketplace. Now, after we talked through all of these different things, and I gave him a few reflective exercises to go into that hopefully got him some clarity when we got off the call. But the last piece is this last question that's most important for you to ask yourself: are you willing to execute? Right? Execution is the differentiator between going into corporate or executing on your own as an entrepreneur. Until you have the bandwidth and the resources to create a firm, you're essentially going to be doing it on your own. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't have thought partners. That won't mean that you won't have a coach. But you will be building your business on your own, and the execution that you have to take is only dependent on you. So after you've asked yourself all of these questions and you've realized, I haven't been actually putting in revenue generating activity, I can't actually stand to go out and put my clients on the front of my mind and go sell my product, or I do have enough money, I just need to make something shake within the next month or two. Or if you're at a place where money is low, and you have to make that decision right now on whether you're going to make something shake, put the effort in, and get some revenue today. Those decisions all depend on whether you are willing to execute and how hard you're willing to go. There's nothing wrong with you answering no to this question. If you answer no, it's actually great that you can be honest with yourself, and you'll go back into corporate America knowing that you've had a valuable experience, and you also know the value that you bring to a corporation. Knowing what your value is, whether you're in corporate America or in entrepreneurship, is of the utmost importance. So I encourage you to look at yourself, truly ask yourself this question: are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to execute day in and day out on revenue generating activity? Of course, the fun stuff is going to have to come, because as you get clients, you're going to be able to do the stuff that you want to do. But before you do that, you have to put in the legwork. So at the end of this conversation, after all of these 8 questions, and after thinking about my situation and thinking about how these things have played out into my life, then I am at a place where, if you are thinking about leaving your corporate position, think hard about it. Evaluate the situation from a logical perspective, not just an emotional perspective. Out of all of the passions that you currently have, what can you bring to the marketplace, and how can you create a 30-day strategy that will help you collect revenue in the first 90 days in business? And I don't mean the first 90 days after you quit your job. I just mean after you create your LLC. If you create your LLC first, and then you establish your presence and your brand presence online, and go out there and start talking to people, that you are willing to put 100% into it from that day forward, and you're willing to see those results come to fruition. That's before you leave your job. If you've already left your job and you're thinking about turning around, ask yourself these questions and seriously look at yourself in the mirror. After you've answered these questions and after you've thought about the skills that you have, at that point you can make any decision that you want. I can never tell you that it's not important that you don't go to corporate, because we all know that corporate has crazy resources that if you are able to give the company what they desire, which is your work, then you can get what it is that you need out of them, which is the resources. It's the pay, it's the training, it's the relationships, all of the above. Now, after you've come to conclusion and you decided, yes, you're going to execute, then I am just here to provide you support and encouragement as you continue down this journey, continue to bet on yourself, and continue to see this vision through. Because there's nothing worse than feeling regret. The feeling of regret can make so many people tap out of this life, right? And so I encourage you to just put everything that you have into this entrepreneurial endeavor. Don't quit. There's so many stories that help us understand how do you explore your interests, whether you're in entrepreneurship or whether you're still in corporate America. The choice is up to you, and I want to empower you to make that decision today. I hope you guys really got some nuggets and some jewels that you're able to really think through and make a decision for yourself, get some clarity. Because the next thing that we're going to be doing is continue to explore other career choices, other journeys, other ways of going about this thing we call life. And so if y'all are strapped in for the journey, I'm with you as well. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. I will catch you guys on the next podcast. Peace out.